indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right.
Good evening, everybody. Apologize for my voice. Allergies are kicking in. We have a pretty robust agenda tonight, so I'll try to get through it. So I have a motion to open up the town board meeting May 11, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
Scott Bell.
I'll second. Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. First item on the agenda is we have a public hearing. Altruist Next Amp Solar Farm. Can I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right, open it up to the public. Any comments, any questions? Go ahead, Sue.
I'm gonna come on and give you guys a wait.
Sure.
You want a microphone?
You want,
Do I have to?
you don't have to know.
Well, that's how it's recorded, okay.
DEC did a study on.
They won't be able to hear you, so,
Oh,
sorry.
Okay, let me just,
If you want to be heard,
Thank
yeah.
you.
is it on there?
Oh,
I am lucky.
Thank you.
And I copied, oh, just for the minute.
It's her last copy, she had nothing to talk from.
She had plenty. Thank you, sir.
And I might as well. I didn't make too many copies, I had problems with my printer, so if you guys don't mind sharing these. Sean, I'm not going to be actually an Orange County Water Authority map.
Filthy times. So you need this back, or all the work?
No, you can.
Want to see it? Shall we do it?
yeah. Is it on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Except we didn't know. Let's see, the first map that I gave you is out of the DEC, and that is of the landfill. And if you look at the red spots that are on there, I tried to highlight them. They did testing on all the closed, not all, but most of the closed landfills for forever chemicals, PFAS. I'm not gonna go through all the names, dioxin. Anyway, Altry was not good. And if you look at the ones with the double marks on them, one of them's off-site. It's off of the landfill proper. And it's shown that it's over. So it is the one that is well number 1, which is next, it's either, I guess, Amy's or, and it's also next to the river. And there are a couple others that are over. My understanding is they're going to run another, they're supposed to have a meeting kind of and come up with an action plan on this. You can't, at least my understanding is you can't get these out of the water. Newburgh's been trying it to the extent that is incredible. The other thing is, there's fracture traces that go underneath the landfill and over to the village of Goshen wells. This is from an Orange County Water Authority map from '98, so it is old. And it also goes over the fracture traces towards, I think it's Walkhill's well, which has been showing, it's under both of the wells, I think, have been showing they're under the influence of groundwater. To me, one is the DEC, my understanding is they sent this stuff to the town. I don't know if you guys have seen it.
I have not seen it.
Okay, maybe it was during Doug's era.
You know.
But a lot of the municipalities came out in front of this and said, look, we're gonna get involved in this. And, you know, it's really a scary thought because this is over an aquifer.
Right.
And if you're gonna be developing a lot around the landfill and you're gonna be drawing a lot of water, it's already gone off-site, how long is it gonna be before you're gonna start drawing all the chemicals off-site? And I think it would be wise, and this is just me, if you could get some people that are knowledgeable and kind of go to these DEC or contact the DEC, and figure out what's the best, because if it starts drawing, you know, any further than next door, you can really run into some problems here, and there's a lot of development going on around the landfill.
Right.
I also had brought up to the planning board, there's, on Google Earth, and unfortunately my printer wasn't working very well, there's about 8 ponds on top of the landfill. Maybe you can get Sean or somebody else to go on Google Earth so you could see. They said that there's one, it's not one, there's quite a few. It looks to me like the cap is failing. I know that they say settlement, but you don't see that at any other landfills. At least I didn't, and I have been to quite a few landfills. The thought of putting solar, I'm not against solar or anything like that, but this thought of putting any more weight on top of that landfill, given the chemicals that are leaching off site, I think that if you were to give them a special permit, I think you're making a really big mistake. The landfill might not have been the smartest move in the world, but this is going to compound things. I really, really feel that you're making a mistake.
Susan, when Amy's Kitchen came, they did some looking, seeing, and found the same thing you're finding. And that with the landfill and so forth and so on, that's why they went to Middletown to get their water, so that because they make food. And they didn't dare use any of those wells.
I understand that, and I think there's also a well restriction on the first landfill property.
So-
But the problem is, it's not only confined to water. They found places that are near, at least from what I've read online, that have PFOAs, and it can go airborne to the extent that off-site comes up positive because it attaches itself to organics. And when they've gone and tested, they don't have a test right now, at least my understanding, they're trying to come up with one to find out the air stand, you know, how bad it is in the air. So you're dealing with a couple things here, but I would suggest that you get a copy of the Google Earth, or go out to the landfill yourself and actually walk the property. Because it's just, anyway, that's it for the landfill. If you have any questions, I can answer what I can, but I'm not an expert on that. I'm not gonna, I've read a lot on it, and you know, they call them forever chemicals because.
You can get PFAS and PFOA out of water with a carbon filtration system and reverse osmosis. You get 99.8% of PFAS out of water. I'm not sure about the airborne effect of it, but I would imagine, I understand what you're saying with pressure being put on the top of the landfill. I don't see it. I mean,
And there's been leaking out of that landfill. I have filed complaint after complaint after complaint. I don't know if you guys have seen the picture.
Well, they have heavy, you know, let's face it, that
They have
landfill,
arsenic and
they
everything
have
else.
heavy metals in there, arsenic and all the other ones. And so it's just not PFOAs or PFOSs, it's a whole laundry list of things.
Yes.
And,
well, I'm not sure the weight of the solar is going to penetrate that any more than just rainwater going through it.
But maybe somebody should make them do a study on it. Isn't that
Look
part
at
of
that.
secret? So,
Again, that would be planning board, correct? That wouldn't be us.
Was lead agency for seeker, that's correct. I can say, and I don't know if you're, well, the applicant can comment on it better than I can, but they've been in contact with the DEC regarding the repair of the cap, and I think you're aware of that.
I've read the repair for the one pond on the cap. I haven't read what they're doing for all 8 of them.
The repair of the cap is not something that this planning, that's not covered in the special permit of the site plan, that's something
Yeah.
they're doing with the DEC and permitted by the DEC. I did separately reach out to the DEC regarding stormwater requirements, so because of that kind of communication, I'm aware that they're aware that this is going on.
Yeah.
But they didn't indicate any of this to me. I haven't seen
Yeah,
it.
it's been kept, you know, to me, but, you know, they didn't test all the wells there, that's all they tested, and,
When I spoke to them, they didn't say anything about this. I don't know if the applicant's aware of the
well, I brought it up at the planning board, you know, I know that Lee was aware because the Department of Health is part of the study with this, with DEC, but, I think it is part of this board's purview to ask for a study for it from the applicant. They're the ones that are gonna be, if I'm not mistaken, issuing a special permit for this.
Well, I believe doing a study on it is inevitable. We're gonna find PFAS in the water. There's no doubt about that.
No, it's not about studying the PFAS, it's just studying the impact of having the weight and what it could possibly do with the stuff leaking out of the banks and with PFAS, you know,
Yeah.
chemicals that are there. I don't know that that has actually been shown anywhere in any of the stuff that I've
Ryan, you wanna weigh in on this since you're the applicant? Any?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So,
I think you gotta come up.
Yeah.
Take the mic.
yeah, I'm happy
Thank you so much.
to. Yeah, so I think that, Mr. Supervisor, your point is obviously correct. You know, the presence of our facility on this is not gonna change the underlying composition of what's buried there, right? That's a 30-year-old story there, and the landfill's been capped for quite some time. For the settlement issues, it's worth noting that, you know, with pretty much any landfill in New York State, around 95% of the settlement that happens on any given landfill happens in the first 30 years. So when the organics kind of make their way out, methane gets generated, off gases, etc., that settlement happens in that way. When a landfill is capped very well, the organics are spread in such a way that the settlement doesn't happen in isolated pockets like it has at the Alteric landfill. But in this case, it has, some areas have settled and subsided as much as 3 feet more than other areas. And that's why we have these depressions on the landfill cap. Depending on how much rain we've had at any given moment, you might see 8 isolated ponds, you might see 3 isolated ponds. It just depends on how full they are. The irony of the ponds is twofold. One, they're a problem. They need to be fixed, and they're going to be fixed. It's a contingency of us being able to deploy on the site. DEC will not even let us go out there and sniff the site until that entire area has been fixed and stabilized with new vegetative growth. So that's the first piece. But the irony of the ponds is that they also show that water is being retained on top of the cap, which means that the cap integrity itself is actually still in place. If that water was penetrating through, you wouldn't see it there. So it's trapped at the top, it's trapped on top of the membranes, and it's trapped on top of that clay cap right now. The problem is we don't have positive drainage. So there's areas where water is pooling and it's staying there, and so the goal of this cap repair is to reestablish positive drainage, make sure that water can be shed back into the stormwater controls that are present on the site, the existing stormwater controls present on the site. So that cap repair isn't under the purview of my company. We're not actually conducting that work. We're not qualified to conduct that work. Frankly, if I said that we were, you should probably be concerned. We're solar installers. We are not landfill technicians. But we are very much involved with DEC and very much involved with Alteric to make sure they're choosing the right person to do that work, because we realize that when all is said and done, even if we get our DEC approvals saying, hey, we are now allowing solar as a permitted use on top of this landfill, it just means that it's a permitted use. So if DEC 5, 10, 15 years from now, for whatever reason, decides that it's in the public's best interest to uncap that landfill and pull everything out, we gotta go. There's no way around it. There's no way to pull that out of the DEC contracts. It's a right that they maintain in perpetuity. I think when you start thinking about like failure rates, you start trying to consider what the risk factors are. Realistically, even though it's an imperfect system, leaving something buried is far less risky than digging it up. And that's just the reality, but they maintain that flexibility. So as a solar contractor, we shoulder the risk when we finance a project that potentially DEC could come through, and if this PFAS situation, ultimately DEC says, not only have we identified that there's a problem, but we've identified a clearly charted path to fixing it, we'd have to go. So, you know, there's really, no matter what this board says, DEC maintains the ultimate jurisdiction on that. And so it's worth being aware of in this situation. That's a risk of landfill development.
So for the purposes of her question on the integrity of the cover, that's going to be looked into by a third-party company before you guys are permitted to do any work there?
So
Is that what you're saying? I'm up in words in your mouth.
DEC in this case is the third party. So DEC is reviewing, they've been out on that site a couple different times with EPA to actually, as most recently, the landfill gas Article 5 permit, air quality permit was closed out. And as part of that, that air quality permit kind of represents there's not enough organics left in the landfill to generate methane anymore, and therefore the Amoresco site on that facility is actually being decommissioned and removed. So EPA, DEC went out during the termination of that Article 5 permit, which I believe happened in 2019, so it wasn't super recent, but relatively recent. They've been out there inspecting things during that process. They've been very plugged in, obviously, in this process. And I can tell you from experience that DEC is not in the practice of compromising assets. Their job is to protect them. And right now, everything we're hearing from DEC is that they think and realize, and I would agree with them, it's very unlikely, if not completely out of the realm of possibility, that Altori would repair this if they weren't somehow generating income from the repair being done. And the reality is, if the repair gets done, they can put solar on there, which generates revenue for them, generates revenue for the town, the school district, the county, etc. So they are seeing this as a good opportunity for them to be able to oversee the safe development and deployment of a solar system that ultimately will fix a problem that's been a thorn in their side for years, and bring some level of community benefit to something which is otherwise strictly a liability. And so they are obligated as the steward, the environmental steward of this landfill, to not allow us to build on it if it's compromised. Because ultimately, if it was compromised, they'd want it to be fixed.
So I just have a couple of questions, if that's
Yeah.
okay. First of all, as far as the repair or the cap, if I remember correctly, and maybe it's used up, there were either federal funds or DEC was holding a couple of $1 million
Yeah.
for that repair. I don't know if they still have it. And if they do still have it, there's no reason why they shouldn't do the repair. So that's just a piece of information. But secondly, the second thing is that it appears that you will be taking all the risk on this thing. No one else will be taking, well, you're saying no, but the way I see
Well,
it.
so I guess what's your definition of risk?
The definition of
yeah.
risk is, well, maybe I put the third question second. Does the DEC, are they responsible for issuing a permit or allowing you to do it?
Yes, correct.
So, if they do that, then they feel that there's not any real risk other than the risk that you'll take by doing it and finding out something did go awry, and then you would be shouldering all the liability. Am I correct in all of that?
So we would be, the way that it works is we, as part of our DEC approval process, have to go through 3 different things.
Right.
So the first piece is an engineering review. They look at the full system, they make sure that the system complies with DEC's best practices for landfill construction. So that covers things like pounds per square inch on the landfill cap. That's why we're using ballasts, big concrete ballasts spread out that actually have a lower PSI than, say, a medium duty truck. It covers things like how we're running electrical wires. It covers things like where are we grounding stuff? Are we running any risk of penetrating the cap? Secondarily, as part of that engineering report, is a pretty in-depth summary of construction practices and how we're going to be protecting the cap throughout construction, pre and post construction. The second piece of that is what's called the post-closure care manual. So the post-closure manual is a manual that dictates how the landfill has to be cared for throughout its system. As part of this, we become party to the post-closure plan.
Right.
So we are not the ultimate, we will not ultimately have the vested risk for the site, but there are certain portions of the post-closure monitoring and maintenance that Nexamp will now take over. So, for example, vegetative management is now going to be under our purview. Anything having to do with erosion, subsidence within our lease area and project area, we're going to be responsible for fixing, which just so happens to be all the areas that are problem areas now are directly under where we're going to be.
Right.
They're going to be our responsibility moving forward. Those are all covered in this post-closure care plan that gets filed on the title alongside all of DEC's approvals. And the last piece of this is the removal of restricted covenants. So right now, basically the landfill has a restricted covenant on it saying that it cannot be developed into anything. So without the removal of that restricted covenant, we have no right to be there whatsoever. And DEC maintains the unilateral right to either keep that in place or remove it. And that functions at the end of the day, even if they approve the engineering report, the post-closure plan, you know, if they said ultimately though, we don't feel comfortable enough to remove this restriction, then we can't do anything.
When I talked about the risk and liability, what I'm saying is that if the DEC comes out and says, you know what, the extra weight, and that's all we're talking about here, I
Right.
think, because all the conditions that are there are gonna stay there, or at least be cleared up, some of them, by your firm, before you can build it. So we're talking about the weight. So what I'm saying to you is if, for some reason, the DEC says, yeah, it will not create any additional problems, and that's the factor that what everybody's worrying about, and you do build, and then they come in 10 years and say, you know what, that was a mistake, you shouldn't have built, we're gonna do that. You're taking that risk that they're gonna shut you down. I don't know if you have insurance or not, but that's beside the point.
Expensive.
So that's what I meant by risk. You're really taking the risk.
Yeah.
Because they're gonna say, okay, we'll allow you to build, but understand this, if something happens, you guys are on the hook, and you have to stop the operation. So you are taking upon all the risk.
Yeah, so
I
it's
think
worth-
the only question for me is the weight.
Right.
If the DEC says, well, the weight is not gonna make any difference only because the conditions you have that everybody cited are gonna be the conditions.
Right.
You'll
Yeah.
clean some of them up. So, I mean, that, am I right
Yeah,
in
no,
understanding?
you're
this
very
thing,
much
or-
on point. I mean, the
Okay.
principal
Yeah.
financial risk with a project like this is the fact that your, you know, in this case, whatever $10 million asset might just get wiped off the books.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and it's a big one, and so it's worth noting the way that these systems are built, right? They're done with large concrete ballasts. So the concrete ballasts are about 1.5 feet tall, 1.5 to 2 feet wide, and about 4 to 6 feet long, depending on the racking system that you're using. And those concrete ballasts are meant to distribute weight. They're heavy enough to maintain all the wind and snow loads that the town code requires, but their goal is to distribute weight. So directly underneath those is at bare minimum 18 inches of topsoil cover, and then below that you have the bladder for the system.
Right.
So one of the big restrictions DEC has on these systems is that we cannot put any ballast on anything over 10% grade. And the reason for that is DEC has looked into this, and the reality that they've realized is that the ballast pose an erosion risk over 10%, where water flow around them could potentially erode out the soil and make them sink and then pose a risk.
Sure.
So that's one of the pieces that we have to design around. DEC was very thoughtful in their landfill guidance. They've spent a lot of time on this.
Yeah.
They worked with the EPA deeply on this. And ultimately, we trust their judgment. I mean, I don't really have a choice
Right.
otherwise, but we trust their
but
judgment.
Based on what they're saying, is that if it doesn't work, you're the one that's taking all the risk,
No.
all the financial risk.
I'm
We're
sorry.
taking the financial
Can I-
risk on the asset being built on top of the
Can I
land.
interrupt for a
Okay,
Yes,
second?
please.
no,
And
go
you
ahead.
can, you're welcome to correct me if I'm wrong here. My understanding from what I've read is, let's say that there's a compromise in the cap underneath any place that you're building, and the cap's in bad shape. Altry landfill is responsible for repairing that cap. Actually, anything to
Okay.
the landfill proper, Altry landfill is responsible. And that's a very scary thought to me. Those ponds have been on that cap, and it's something that they have, it's part of their rod. They're supposed to repair them right away. It's not a good thing for a landfill to sit there and have puddling water on it. Or woodchuck holes, and it's also supposed to be mowed all the time, and it's got trees, I believe, growing on part of it.
No, there's no trees growing up
Sumac.
there.
But
Sumac's a
anyway, it
bush, not a
doesn't
tree.
matter. So the thought that if something does go wrong and something happens to the cap of Altry, I think my first complaint on the ponds was probably 10 years ago. So 10 years has gone by, it's never been fixed. They haven't gotten a consent order, they haven't gotten fined for it. What makes you think that they're gonna do something if you have a problem? He is correct, he's responsible for his own stuff that's up
How
there.
did they get paid? Monthly, yearly?
believe it's a quarterly.
quarterly, so if something happens and something needs to be repaired, you're obviously not gonna pay them.
Yeah, well, so it's worth noting you brought something up, which is a DEC fund. I think it's an important thing to
Right.
bring up.
Yeah.
So Altieri has been repeatedly trying to get DEC funds from the balance of that.
I know that.
I'm not exactly sure what type of fund it is. Basically, DEC
$1
has,
million.
it's way more than that
Yeah,
at this point.
well, they say.
Yeah, I mean, way more than that because
Yeah.
it's just been invested in a standard market fund. So it's
Yes.
been earning 4 to 6 for the past 15 years.
Right.
And so it's way more money than that at this
Yeah.
point. DEC to this point has refused to give Altieri any disbursements from that fund aside from the interest payments that are earned from it. And that settlement only began in 2015. So I think it was actually later than that. So Altieri's been getting, $50,000 to $60,000, which they're turning around and paying TAM to pump the leachate out, basically breaking even. But the reality is that DEC still has that principal balance. And they've smartly maintained that principal balance in case of a catastrophic failure because they might actually have something to draw on. DEC's mad about the ponds, but they don't view it as a catastrophic failure. They view it as an issue that needs to be rectified. But they, if it was a catastrophic failure, the day that we called them up and told them, hey, we want to put something here, they would have told us, get the heck out of here.
Right, yeah.
and so
Yeah.
I think that the big point for me, right, is that the risk of Altieri's negligence remains regardless of whether or not we're there. Really, all that happens is that you have an additional steward who has a way higher vested interest in the property present than Altieri, who just says, yeah, and ultimately, I'll leave it up to the board to determine how they see the value of that.
Yeah.
In our opinion, us being present and taking care of a asset on which we're leveraged on this land means that it's going to be looked after better than it was before, not worse.
Yeah.
So to Sue's concern that Altieri is the culprit here, you can mitigate that because you have the money that you're gonna be paying them. So if there's a breach on that cap or something that needs to be fixed, they're gonna have to fix it or you're not gonna pay them.
Yeah, to the extent that we won't be able to operate and therefore they'd be in breach, right? So, yeah.
So they're gonna do whatever they have to during the time that the solar is there to mitigate any problems with that cap.
Yeah, if we're not fixing it for them first.
Okay.
And that's the reality is the vast majority of
Are
the
you at
top of
peace
this
with
cap
that?
is gonna be taken care of after.
Well, I am kind of, I haven't seen them.
Well,
You know,
we're taking it out of their hands though. It's not-
You're not wrong in that the legal responsibility will always lie with them. And I can
Yes.
tell you this because if it lied with us, we wouldn't be able to finance the thing.
Right.
Like it just wouldn't be possible. And so you're not wrong there. But I guess the question is like you have a situation where you have a known entity with a known pattern of behavior doing the same things it's done for years.
You've got chemicals that are really leaching out of the banks and they're already migrating off site. I mean, that.
But the reality is having a steward on that site that's gonna repair existing damage or help enable repairing of existing damage rather, help take care of vegetative maintenance, all those things.
I'm not against.
Oh, no, I'm
really not.
I'm not alluding to
And-
that at all. I guess my question is, I personally, and this is me just saying my opinion, which probably isn't pertinent here, but I'm not sure how we can make it worse.
Right.
I don't know.
No, I think you make it better.
Better.
Yeah, I personally I don't see how we can make it worse following these guys.
One extra steward taking care of
Well,
issues because they have
I
a
would-
financial interest to take care of the issues. And the authority rests with the DEC. If they thought it was unsafe or not able to do it, they would just tell you up front, and you'd be crazy to pursue it
Oh, yeah.
without
be a terrible
putting any
business.
money in there. So, I mean, once again, you're assuming so much risk on building on something. But the issues that are there,
I don't
We're
know
not
that
gonna
I rely on DEC at this point as
well,
far as.
that's,
Well, but-
you have nobody else to rely on.
But the concerns you have are with a owner who's done nothing for it.
Right.
Now, revenue is gonna be generated by Alturas, which has to be paid to them. If there's a breach on that cap, it has to be fixed, or there'll be no money being paid to them. Am I correct?
Yep, we won't be able to operate anymore.
So you basically, we are basically creating an insurance policy for the Altori landfill by allowing them to come on there.
Okay, well, I'll stop arguing about this.
That's not an
But
argument, it's
I
No,
would,
we wanna make sure you're at
Yeah.
ease.
I
Good
would,
information.
I think it would be wise, on just a separate subject, I'm not trying to pick on, if this board would at least contact people at DEC about PFAS and what their future plans are. You have a lot of development going on, and I really think it needs to be looked into.
Understood.
You know, because people, that's an aquifer, people are gonna be drinking out of it, and if you start drawing, you're gonna start drawing the chemicals right out. So,
Understood, and I agree with you. I mean,
Yeah.
but you can get PFAS out of water. That I can tell you.
I'm not sure if you can dioxin, or whatever.
PFAS and PFOS and PFAS can
Yes,
be taken out with a
those
carbon
are
filtration
two
system
of
and
the,
reverse
I think, the
osmosis.
8 chemicals that,
But that, once again, is not what we're talking about.
No.
here.
no, I'm just
Yep.
It's a totally
saying it
separate
as a
issue.
side
It's
note.
a good point. I think we should look at it.
Yeah, I do too.
Sorry, I didn't.
No,
that's
it's all good.
It's good information.
Yeah. Oh, anybody else from the public like to speak on this?
Yeah, let's go. I'll put it right in there in the winch.
All right, any comments from the board? You had yours.
I do have a question, and that is, TAM Enterprise has been pumping out the leachate for years and years and years. Does that change the hydraulics underneath and maybe the shape of this thing over time? Under the,
I feel like I'd be disingenuous answering that question.
okay, that's the only question I have, and evidently the DEC's thought about that, because they haven't commented on it.
Yeah, no, it hasn't been a concern. The leachate system seems to be functioning as it's supposed to.
Okay, very good.
Oh, I just had one thing. Yeah, I guess so. So your facility is gonna be how many acres?
Right.
It's just under 25 acres total.
And the total landfill is, do you have any idea how?
The
how big
total, well,
114.
yeah, 114 is all the tax parcels. The landfill is slightly smaller than that, but call it 14.
it is? Yeah, and I think you've kind of answered this, but just to kind of bring it in my mind to some closure, just enhancing what Phil said, and that is, it appears at this particular point that the DEC and regulatory agencies so far feel good enough that there isn't going to be penetration, therefore causing more pressure and therefore maybe like oozing more of this really bad stuff out. They've kind of come to that conclusion at this point.
Yeah, the DEC guidance is built to maintain cap integrity. Like their guidance was designed around that fact. And so ultimately they vet what you're putting something on, and they won't let you really progress much farther into that process if they disagree with it. Our feedback from Region 3 so far has been that they are excited about this development, and that as long as we follow their guidance and install it to their standards, they're confident that it will only prolong the life of that cap.
Thank you.
Can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, so,
So, Supervisor, in front of the board is a draft resolution for the special permit. Tracks the standard kind of procedure that we've used for special permits. Which borrows language really from the planning board's analysis of the project. And really, if I was going to draw your attention to specific portions, it would be towards the area where the resolution actually is contained, and specifically the specific conditions, which I think are always the focus. I know Councilman Canarino, with us being the last to go, we want to always tie it to where the planning board is, and we also have the DEC involved in this particular one. But I would turn your attention there if we're looking for anything specifically related to this project.
You mean page 8?
Yeah, starting at the bottom, page 8.
Page 8?
Yep, yep. And then it goes into general conditions, but the general conditions are kind of in line with standard. The specific here, you'll notice, cites specific portions of the town code and does cite the DEC as well.
Roy, on page 9,
Yes.
right at the top, the property owner shall remove it, if it's not completed in 18 months. Who is the property owner you're referring to? That's the electric, or is that?
Yeah, in this particular, it's a good catch on the semantics, because technically Alturas is not the property owner, but they are the owner of the property that would be on the property. So the stuff that would be removed, in this case, the property is Alturas's.
Okay, well, we'll need to update that so we.
What's that?
We probably ought to change that.
Sure,
so
if you
that-
read it, I guess for me, when I was reading it, I will mark that, but if
Okay.
you read it in its entirety,
Right.
it would be attached, it's the property that's on the property, but
Right.
I see what you're saying.
Okay.
And this does kind of track what Ryan was talking about in the event, you know, the DEC comes in and
Right.
has a different opinion 10 years down the line, what would
Right.
go in, and along with what conditions the planning board has set.
Has the town engineer, Sean, established what the decommissioning amount is going to be?
We're not there yet, and that's something for discussion either
And I-
later today or
And I
down.
think I do see here an escalator, right?
Yeah.
Every 5 years, it's gonna be evaluated?
And this is a contingency, this resolution is a contingency on however the engineer and others deem that initial amount to be an escalator. It's always tricky because we're trying to anticipate, you can't do all of them at once, so you're always trying to anticipate what.
Well, normally what Sean does is he comes together with a number that we have to have in cash.
Oh, yeah.
So that we know if something does go wrong, we can.
And I don't know if the cart would be before the horse here or not, but we're gonna get to the decommissioning portion, so it will, this will answer itself, I guess.
I'm good with it. Anybody else? Any other questions?
So we need a motion to,
Oh, George has something. Yeah, George.
No, I'm saying, are we going to attempt to pass this tonight?
Yes.
That would be the idea. I mean, it's just it's a memorialization of the composite of what's gone on leading up to today, including actually, it incorporated the commentary of Ms. Cleaver and Mr. McCune in a sense, because it addressed the DEC stuff, which is the outlier here that normally isn't in our resolutions.
I think this is really gonna create another layer of security for us. Because now we have someone else in the mix. If there's an issue out there, we'll have another party in the mix.
This finance is being generated, correct?
Yeah. So I think I'm going to recommend that we approve the resolution for the special use permit.
So a motion to approve the special use permit for Alturas Nexamp Solar.
Yeah.
Who made that motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
You want to take a roll call?
Yeah,
Roll call?
it'll be a roll call, yep.
Councilman Canerino.
Aye.
Councilman Lyons.
Aye.
Councilman Bloomfield.
Aye.
Supervisor Betchel, aye.
Just one note, I know, I'm gonna take a look at the language that Doug pointed out, just to make sure it reads correctly. I may adjust that, it's not a material change, just a clarification.
We understand it's in the
Okay,
minutes
good.
and it's part of the resolution. Thank you.
Perfect.
Good.
Okay, moving on.
Good.
Item number 1, discuss extending local law 1 of 2022, extending a moratorium on certain solar energy uses for 6 months. We have a moratorium in place that we put in. We haven't gone fully through all of the assessment of what we're going to do.
Right.
So we're looking to extend that to 6 months. Any questions?
Just, I'll throw in that the date specific is November 11th, 2023. 6 months from today falls on a Saturday. I pushed it to the Monday.
What's that date?
That's
Okay.
November 13th of 2023. It's a Monday. So, rather than leaving it open-ended, we wanted to have a date last time.
Okay.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 2, review and approve the road improvement program for 2023. Roderick Knoll, our superintendent, is here to talk about it.
Yeah, got one right
We've got
here.
one right there.
And this is gonna be big, he's making himself comfortable.
No, this is the 13th year.
Yes.
Been through it before, as three of you have.
Yes.
All right, as you see on the first page is the 2023 agreement to
Done.
That's better. This is the agreement to spend highway funds. This is part of highway law, section 284 for the state. The first section is general repairs, that's what's been budgeted. We are currently at 75.4 center line miles of highway. And then the balance, number 2, is our revenue and what our expenditures are going to be. There have been some changes to the revenue. Chips went up from 186,000 to 211. The other one, Pave New York and Extreme Winter Recovery, and the POP is Pave Our Potholes. That was a new state program. So the total of those.
So it went up too?
Excuse me?
That one went up from 41,000 to 49, to 66,000?
Well, actually, if you see there, it's 22 and 23. We didn't collect POP because it was new last year.
Okay.
So it rolled over, so that's cumulative. They were about 33,000 each.
Okay.
Okay, so if we go down the second page, we've got some milling that we plan to do in Arcadia. This is a continuation of what we've done the past 2 years. We also will enter, there's a couple roads off of Derlin Road, Orchard Hill Vista, Quaker Mill Run, and Twin Spring. We're gonna go and mill those and retop those. Larchwood Drive was pretty much destroyed with the installation of the new sewer main, so we are gonna full depth reclamation that and pave over the top of it, and that'll tie in to some of the other work that we're doing. You'll see the chip sealing, you'll see a total of 10.64. It has been my goal to chip seal roads every 4 years, 4 years after they're paved, and 4 years after they're chip sealed. We're getting closer, we're not quite there. We did 11 miles last year, we're almost 11 miles this year. Paving, it shows the roads that we would like to pave. That's 3.26 miles and 5,349 tons of asphalt. I don't know if you want to run through the roads or it's fine that we don't, because I know you're on time crunch. We're going to do another process. We've done it before. It's sometimes called Nova Chip. It's under the section PPST type B. That's going to be Farmingdale Road. That's a road that we full depth reclaimed with cement stabilization a few years ago. The top didn't come out quite right, so we're going to retop it with a new wear surface.
Robert, what's the cost of asphalt per ton this year versus last year? Is it going up significantly because of oil prices?
Well, it's a little difficult to tell because last year was the first year the county never had an escalation clause for asphalt prices. So what you bid, what Tilcon or Ward bid, that's what it was, period. Whether it was asphalt climb. In 2022 was the first year that there was an escalation clause. And I think Ward's bid was about $86, and we paid almost $10 a ton for the escalation. This year, Tilcon bid actually lower, they bid 81 and change per ton. But my figures are based on $95, so that,
You're covered.
we should be covered.
So Tilcon is at 81, but is there an escalator as well?
There is, there,
That's-
now on the county will be an escalator,
That's the current bid for Tilcon, 81?
$81 a ton, for highway, not for non.
Yeah, yeah.
Of any note in the post-paving other, there is a double set of culverts that cross Wedgewood down by Gumwood. So everybody can get their bearings. It's a double, like 48-inch. They're about a foot apart, and it's been a problem with debris catching in the middle. So it's just constant, and they became separated in Hurricane Irene. So we'd like to remove those culverts and put in one single box culvert. So you'll see $55,000 towards that effort. So you'll see what our total revenue is, planned expenditures, and right now we have a revenue balance of $177,925 to use in other things. And if we find that asphalt is not as expensive as it was last year, then obviously that revenue balance will increase, because we won't use it.
I don't think it's going down. I heard the retail rate for it is $98 a ton, coming out of Tilcon.
That's for like contractors.
Yeah. All right.
Any
So that-
questions?
Yeah, that box culvert's concrete, correct?
Excuse me?
The double culverts on Gumwood and White, that's gonna be concrete?
Yes, I do
Yep.
not want to put any more
Good.
aluminum culverts.
I'm with you, that's why I asked. Sounds good to me.
So we actually have, as far as town roads, we have 75.44, that's miles.
Correct, and there was
Total town.
total town, center line miles, so double that for lane miles.
Oh, okay.
There was one development that we didn't get into profile because we didn't have the dedication
Right.
Yeah.
resolution, because that's got to go to New York State DOT to be accepted.
Which development?
The Heritage.
Heritage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's one we need to worry about, I think, all long-term, because they put asphalt down when it was raining. And that'll shorten the life of that, I think, based on my own engineering perspective of that. Yeah.
You'll have Rolling Ridge too, coming up.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions?
Looks good.
Thanks, Brad.
Yeah.
Well,
So we have to pass this by resolution?
Yes.
well, you're gonna pass it
We
by
have to make a
resolution,
motion.
and then we're gonna go back, there's a paperwork of Highway Law 284, which is, that's the bond that we have together, that we're in agreement.
Yeah. We have to sign off on it.
We all sign off on it, and then,
Right.
But for tonight's purposes, we need a resolution basically saying that this is what you're gonna do.
yeah.
So I will make that resolution.
Okay.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen.
But I like this, Roderick. Looks good.
Everybody has to sign it, so don't.
So this will be, okay.
All right, there.
Joe says there's no time like the present.
Yeah, just get it done.
Yeah.
Just gotta we don't have Ricky here tonight, so he'll have to come in tomorrow and do
Okay,
it.
take it with you.
Thanks, brother. Good job.
Welcome. Thank you.
I guess you're gonna meet up with Rick somewhere or other?
No, we're gonna do tomorrow.
Oh, staying here, oh, I thought maybe he was taking.
No, he's not taking it.
Okay, item number 3, discuss and adopt a revised sexual harassment policy as proposed by New York State. I have a memo that was sent to Mary and myself from Kelly. It says New York State has modified its sexual harassment prevention information, which became effective this week. Attached, please find the sample notice, excuse me, from New York State that should be placed to posted, and the town has posted. Just essentially updates what the previous one, and every employee has to fill it out?
Yep.
We're gonna adopt it into our personnel policy.
Okay.
Gonna take the place of the policy in there now.
You have any questions on it?
I'll make the motion if we need a motion.
Don't we, isn't there a presentation every year that we have to attend?
Yes,
We
it's coming
do.
up in May.
Okay, it's, yeah, it's, okay,
But this will be the base of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
okay, good.
George made that motion, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 4. Discuss and approve the stormwater control facility maintenance agreement for Legoland, New York. This has to do with the stormwater. And we do this for all commercial projects in the town, so.
Is that something new?
Yes and no. It's new relative to you becoming an MS4. Legoland was one of these projects that
It
was
was in the
gone through the approval
process.
somewhat prior to you finishing your MS4, adopting local laws in 2016 or 2017. As you recall, when you were a supervisor, when somebody is covered under the general permit to have stormwater discharges from a construction activity, they conclude that permit by filing a notice of termination. Now that the town's in MS4, the town supervisor is responsible for filing that. One of the items on that form is 4 checkboxes where they would have to indicate either that they're deeding the stormwater to the municipality, they've executed a maintenance agreement with the municipality that they will maintain, or there's a mechanism for private operation, like a deed restriction. So in this particular case, they're providing you with the stormwater agreement to satisfy that requirement on the notice of termination, so they can terminate out their permit with DEC.
But they still own the property.
They still own
pay for
everything.
it. Yes.
And they will maintain it.
And they'll
They will
maintain.
maintain, just like any other project, you would take an easement over their property.
Right.
In case they fail to do that, you
Right.
have the right to enter the property to inspect. You
Yeah.
have the right to enter the property to make improvements if they fail to do so.
Right.
And you were also, I believe, accepting a
$68,000.
$68,000
Bond.
that you will
Bond.
keep in case you have to do work on
Right.
their stormwater,
Mhm.
which is
Okay.
what you had just done that recently with stormwater projects.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Is that a cash bond?
This is not.
No. Anybody have any questions? Anything else on that, Sean?
That's all I have, Mr. Supervisor.
Are we going to,
To motion.
I'll make a motion.
We got, hold on, we got 2 of them though, right? We have the maintenance agreement and then we have the escrow agreement. So we're just doing the maintenance agreement right now?
Yeah.
All right, so could I have a motion to accept the stormwater control facility management agreement?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next is, we're gonna be discussing and authorize the supervisor to sign the Legoland New York LLC maintenance escrow agreement for the stormwater structure facility in the amount of $68,500. This was prepared by Kelly and agreed to by Legolands.
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, next on the agenda is awarding of the town hall roof restoration bid. Sean, you wanna go through that?
Sure, so yesterday we received bids for the roof restoration. I'm going to talk about the windows separately because it's a separate project.
Right.
You received 3 bids. The lowest bid was submitted by TAM. It was in the amount of $113,787. We reviewed TAM's bid. I sent it to the town attorney. He reviewed TAM's bid. I believe that, Roy, did you have any issues?
No.
Okay, so there was no issues with the bid documents, so this is on if you'd like to make an award to TAM.
You know, just based on how much lower that is than the other 2, can they really, from an engineering standpoint, do this job for that amount of money?
Whenever I have a bid and I have a situation where there seems to be some difference, because you never know what anybody put into the bid. You never know what the low bidder put in. Maybe they're hungry, maybe they need to work.
Sure.
Maybe
Right.
the second lowest bidder doesn't necessarily need to work and they just put in a number that's attractive to them. I actually spoke to TAM by telephone. They said they are comfortable with this bid and that they are still making a profit on this number and they'd like to proceed with the project.
Good.
All right, so can I get a motion to award the town hall restoration bid to TAM Enterprises?
For the roof.
Second,
Yep. Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Now we have the awarding of the town hall window replacement
By the
bid.
way, that's the best deal we've had all day.
That is good, and the one thing I'll just remind the board is you received $50,000 from DASNY for a state municipal facilities grant.
Right.
Yeah.
So a little less than half of that will be paid for by New York State.
Right.
Similarly, on the windows.
But that's been long in coming, because Senator Bonasek was the one that processed that long ago, and it got screwed up in Albany.
At that time, the cost of the replacement was $50,000.
I don't necessarily know if it was that low, but it was probably.
Yeah,
It was close.
but we had a lot of conversation about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So on windows, similarly, took bids yesterday, received 4 bids this time. The low bid was also submitted by TAM, it was $98,500. Again, I spoke with TAM yesterday, they are comfortable with that number and believe they're making a profit, and they're also receiving $50,000 in that.
These are good windows, good quality, better than the ones we've got.
Those are, I think they're Anderson.
I don't recall if Anderson or Pella were submitted,
Okay.
one of the two. It was either Anderson or Pella windows.
Because the windows that we built this building with are junk. Really, they just never worked. So I want them better this time.
We're gonna donate them to the scrapyard.
That's a great place to,
Yeah, Mr. Supervisor, they're either Anderson windows or Pella windows.
Yeah,
Okay. Great.
the company that both, TAM had sent in and a couple of the others.
Both were Anderson.
Both were Anderson, yep.
Wonderful, good.
All right, so can I get a motion to award the windows to TAM Enterprises?
So moved.
Second.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, number 8. Review, excuse me, review a request by New Gen Construction dated May 5th, 2023 to post a performance guarantee as an irrevocable letter of credit or surety bond in the amount of $70,800 instead of cash or certified check. This is for Pursuit, correct?
This is for phase 1B of the Pursuit subdivision, which is the 5 lots adjacent to Maple, or abutting on Maple. However, it's only 3 development lots because one is the existing Pursuit, what's remaining of the farmhouse, and the remainder parcel that we future subdivided for phase 2.
Well, this is a departure from our cash bonds.
Right. It is.
So I'm still for the cash bond.
Yeah, I think the reason they requested it because it's a phased development.
That's not 100% accurate. So you may recall in 2018, you had actually changed this portion of the code requirement.
Right.
And the way your code reads right now is the developer can either provide a cash bond or a certified check. That's it. They can do that after the planning board sets the performance bond amount, they can just submit that, one of those 2 options directly to the town clerk.
Right.
Your code also gives you the authority to accept a surety bond or an irrevocable letter of credit at your discretion. So right now, they're looking for you to exercise that discretion and authorize either one of those 2.
Well, for one, I want the cash. Because that's consistent with what we do with everybody else.
Yeah, with a certified check. Even
Or
more.
a certified check.
It's a small amount, you have 3 lots.
Yeah.
Talking about,
Well, it's not a 3-lot subdivision though, right? It's a 20-lot subdivision.
no.
Technically,
No.
this is actually a 5-lot
Five.
subdivision.
Right.
Only 3 of the lots are developable at this time, and the
Right.
reason this is a little bit high for this portion of the project is because they're developing infrastructure at the bottom of the hill that's gonna serve infrastructure in the future subdivision.
Right, right.
George?
The concern that I think, many of us have is that if you have to go after them for the letter of credit or surety bond, it creates legal fees, and we may get it, we may not get it, all sorts of things happen. That's why we went to cash. And I'm just kind of asking you, Rory, safer, better, than cash.
Yeah, I don't want my legal opinion to, I mean, it always is chasing something through litigation is always an extra cost.
Yeah, right.
All right,
Well,
so-
George, we
And
discussed,
bird in hand is what we've got to cliche.
I get it. No,
we discussed this many years ago, and then we went round and round and round and came out with cash, and we've been doing it ever since. So this is, well, anyway.
Well, the standard is cash, a certified check.
Yes.
The other is an alternative, special, whatever,
Right.
overriding our basic requirement.
Right.
So I'm just staying with the basic requirement. I don't see any need to override that to accept a letter of credit or surety bond, because I've dealt with those things when I was in the finance business, and collecting on those was a real issue. Anyway,
And
it's not much per lot, and I agree with Doug. I think we should just stay with the basic requirement, and that's it, move on.
What kind of protection does an irrevocable letter of credit give us in lieu of cash?
Well, I could, yeah,
Oh,
sure,
go
if you
ahead,
wanna.
go ahead.
No, it's sort of splitting the baby there, George's question. I mean, it's, the cash in hand is in hand, right? The irrevocable letters still would have an enforceability if you were going to, if you wanted to take action on it.
You would have to.
But it would be less than pure litigation.
Yeah.
So I would say that's a middle ground or closer to cash as far as what part of the sliding scale I would put it on.
So the
That's a-
irrevocable credit.
Go ahead.
You have to go after the bank or the finance source. And that creates a whole new.
But it's not litigation. That's the difference. I
Well,
guess
you
for
might
me,
have to lose.
you might have to.
If they find, I mean, I've been there.
Yeah.
I've done that.
Same.
Millions of dollars. So, I mean, if the bank comes back and says, I know it's irrevocable, however, these are the circumstances that have to be met. This is what happened. We had the right of offset, and the other the other accounts had to be paid first. So and here you go. And 20 years later, you're still in court. So that's.
I don't disagree.
Yeah,
It's still better, I think, than just other options.
My only concern is, I mean, cash is expensive, so I don't want to get to a point in the future where developers don't want to develop in Goshen anymore because we're putting, cash down. But if we don't have an alternate solution, then we don't have an alternate solution. No.
Well, you do. It's just whatever you guys
Well,
want.
I
You
mean,
have options.
And we can review the amount and the terms and the development and the experience. I mean, a lot of things go into accepting a surety bond or an irrevocable letter of credit. But our basic law, and we made that because we did have problems collecting.
We did have problems.
We had real problems collecting, so. we
From
did
development?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
So we went and said,
I'm not aware of it, so that's why I'm asking.
Yeah,
One of-
I will always try to give you some background as long as I know it. So, this one is a small amount based on the number of lots and so on, so.
All right, so
I don't know.
I guess then we're going to keep it the same and request a cash bond for this.
Yeah.
All right? Introductory law number 2 of 2023, a local law repealing and readopting chapter 61A entitled Flood Damage Prevention. This is something prepared by Kelly Norton. Yes, we received it from the DEC comments which were on here are recommended.
I guess I've got a question.
Yeah.
Is this just all new construction, not old construction? They're modifying?
Sean, are you familiar with it?
Yes, I am.
Okay, wanna talk about it?
I'm just gonna give a little bit of background.
Yeah.
This is one with questions.
Okay.
So right now under your code, you have what's known as chapter 61A. That's, that essentially is the codification of flood insurance rate maps and flood insurance from the federal government. In order for your citizens to get insurance under that program, you need to have this law. DEC administers that locally, just like they administer other orders and whatnot from the EPA. So DEC administers that. They've taken a little bit more closer look, in my opinion, recently. They've gotten more involved with it. They recently processed some letters of map provision, which is when somebody does a study and says, well, I'm really not in the floodplain. And they've, in doing that, they looked at your law and they said that your law is a little outdated, and they recommended that you update their law based on the model that they're promulgating now.
Okay.
But direct answer, yes.
Yes.
If you have existing property and you make a modification of that property, you want to put it
You're
in the floodplain.
covered there.
Yep.
Phil?
No, I'm good.
George, anything?
Yeah, so is this I got a copy of this, well, I don't know, about a week ago, I guess. Is this a revised copy now? Is this the updated one, or is this the same one?
These are
The
the DEC.
draft by Kelly. Kelly just got comments back
Right,
from the DEC.
Right.
We'll have it ready this week. and
Right,
give
so,
you
so it's gonna
another
be modified, this.
To incorporate the
this is final.
DEC comments.
Right,
copy. Just very small edits.
I see, right. So I'm just taking the first one that I come across. She's got all of these boxes here commented, right? And it's, I'm looking at page 3. So, and maybe you can help me with this, Sean. The top one there, where it says comment, optional language, number 4. Number 4 is, if I'm reading this box correctly, she's recommending to us that number 4 be the language that's there. That's,
Well, those are
Right.
the comments the DEC is giving her.
No, that's
No,
not
no.
DEC comments on that, sorry.
That's just,
Oh, I'm sorry,
that's
take
Kelly
Diane.
one, right?
Yep.
So if I'm reading the box and then the number 4, she's recommending to us number 4 be written as it is described there. That's
Yeah.
basically what she's saying?
Yes, so
Yes.
when the DEC promulgates the local law, just like other laws that you considered in the past, they recognize that not one size fits all the communities in New York State, so they have certain options. In this particular case, there's only a handful of options. Kelly had asked me my opinion, and I believe she also spoke to the building inspector.
Yes.
The options that are in here are the most protective options to the town and town residents.
I'd go with that.
Okay?
But good, yeah.
So the process is, we have to assume, excuse me, we have to assume lead agency on this.
Yeah, you can do all 3.
So it's a type 1 action and issue a negative declaration, correct? Okay, so could I have a motion to assume lead agency, type this matter as a type 1 action and issue a negative declaration? Have that motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then we set a public hearing.
Yep. We schedule a public hearing for introductory order number 2, 2023.
Kelly recommends June 8th. Sponsor.
I'll
So
make-
moved, at 7 p.m. or soon thereafter.
Bill?
Add that to the motion.
7 p.m., June 8th, 2023. Do you have that motion?
41 Webster Ave.
I think Phil made the
Made the
Billy
motion.
made the motion, second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Introductory law introductory law number 3 of 2023, a local law amending the Town of Goshen zoning code article V11, section 9755 F13. This law is to allow the board to have a bond instead of cash for solar.
Mr. Supervisor, if you don't need me,
Yep.
then head out. Good night, everybody.
Thanks, Sean.
Good night. Thanks, Joe.
This is,
very apropos with
Yeah.
previous discussion of the solar and everything, but the code, the way the code reads, which we brought up, I think was discussed when Ryan was here presenting probably a month ago on the decommissioning. I believe it was a full board, you were
Correct.
here, so it's
Yep,
gotta be a
we were
month
here.
ago.
Right.
It was pointed out that our code would need to be amended to allow for that in the solar portion. In the regular part of the code, as we just discussed, you can have a surety or cash and for things, and with decommissioning, it would need to be refined. However, because there's a couple channels that still have to go through, I wanted to get it to you guys for discussion tonight. Because we're amending the code, if we go forward with it, it would require a second 239 referral to the county, as well as referral to the planning board, back to the planning board. Obviously, they're familiar with the project, so it wouldn't be the full scope of a referral, because it's already been a 239 referral as it went through the channels of the planning board. This is for, again, this is really related to Alturas, and I think maybe that would be it, depending on how the moratorium goes, and if there's no other solar projects, it's kind of a one-off, but regardless, it would still need to be in front. I would still need to be amended and go through those channels. I don't know if that was more information than you needed, but.
so this is in reference to, we talked about putting up the cash bond for farms and things like that to restore it. We felt that Alturas didn't need to have
Well,
that same
yeah,
protection.
they were kind of a unique in that they are carried through, right?
Yep.
And I don't want to. That's very I just took your half-hour presentation and made it 2 words, which I'm supposed to do the opposite as a lawyer, but I think you guys recall what that was about. There was a different, because they're owner-operators as opposed to flipping the project, so
Correct.
to speak. So that was the presentation. It doesn't mean you're authorizing that or signing up for that. But if you were to do that, you would need this in place.
Correct.
So it's putting it there in the event you do allow that as the route they take for decommissioning. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It was, I missed that meeting, I was in Florida.
Okay.
Meeting, so a lot of this is relatively
I will-
new to me, but I got enough information.
Yeah, for the
now.
purposes of tonight,
I
you're not
understand.
voting on, sorry, Phil.
No, I said now,
Yeah.
you gave me enough information to understand what we're talking about here.
And then there's, I'll have Tara pull the section of that meeting for you that Ryan presents, so you can catch up to speed of what his advocacy was for it. So, but you're not voting on anything tonight other than to allow me to refer to the proper channels, any commentary you have on this. Ultimately, it would go through the normal channels of local law, public hearing, and the like, which would be targeting somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 weeks out, probably post that June 8th meeting, probably
Okay.
the next meeting, which I think would give enough time for the other channels to go through.
I mean, I want to weigh in. I would have an issue with precedent, whether it's on Tory landfill or wherever. I would have, and I think
Well-
that should be part of our discussion based on the moratorium, but for now,
Yeah,
in
this
order to
isn't,
move forward, I know it's grandfathered, but in order to move forward, we know what the law is right now. The decommissioning, I think, is going to be one of the most sensitive areas, whether it's on a landfill or private property.
Yes.
So, I mean, I just throw that out,
Yeah.
only
Yeah.
because I wasn't part of the discussion to begin with. So-
and I'm trying to,
Okay.
I don't want to say bifurcate, because there's more than 2 parts here, but I chop it up a little bit. This just allows, if you do go that route, and instead of saying, all right, we want to go that route, and then I've got to go chase this and put this in place, because, and putting it in place in the event that when you do vote on the decommissioning, you have the ability to vote surety, cash,
Don't we have that now?
not in the solar portion.
We don't?
don't
It's
believe
just
so.
in the basic law.
Why?
Why would it, I don't think it would be in the solar or not solar. It's just in our basic law.
Yeah.
Is you can either put a cash bond or
Alright.
whatever, and then we have the authority to waive it and accept a letter of credit or a surety bond.
The solar law specifically says cash bond,
Yeah.
which supersedes any other because it's for that specific special permanent use. So
So we
if you're
have-
deferring to say like I'm building a Dollar General, for
Right.
example, like you'd have that choice, but because of the solar law superseding the underlying code for that specific use case, it does name cash specifically.
So what we did is, we put an extra layer of security for solar
Yes.
by saying
Right.
that without allowing any variance, what we
That's
did
correct.
is, we allowed our basic, I mean, just the way I read this, I could be wrong.
No, I would
Help me
imagine there was.
understand, the way we read this is, we have some alternatives on normal developments. On solar, we're not giving ourselves the leeway, this is
That's
where it
right.
has to be. Is that correct?
And
Now.
that is,
Now.
I wasn't there, but one would presume that's the reason, right? Because
Yeah.
of the type of project it is. However, and you weren't here, and I'm not a board member, I'm just giving a
Yeah,
recap
yeah.
of the, kind of this is a different project in that sense of the type of operator and the manner in which the project sits upon the surface. That's a very, very crude recapture of that meeting.
No, I understand.
Check out the meeting.
I'm there already.
This doesn't,
I
yeah.
understand what you're saying.
This doesn't
Yes.
sign you up for anything, it gives you the
If I
discretion.
recall the discussion in the last meeting, Doug brought it up, was the reason that we went to a cash-only bond is because most of these solar farms are going on farms.
Literally, yeah.
Right, going on people's farms, and we wanted to secure and make sure that those were decommissioned off of those farms.
Yes,
And
return
we
to
said
their
that-
natural state.
We said that the protection of that here lies with the DEC, and therefore we would waive that and give them the ability to
There was a
put
couple
a.
jokes made about returning the landfill to a landfill
Correct.
also, I think.
So that was,
You know,
if I'm correct in remembering.
Yeah, that was the
okay.
third component. It was
So that was
the
what it
manner in
was.
which,
Yeah,
but
good, I understand.
But I'll forward that to you. You're not voting on anything. I'm
Okay.
asking for the ability to refer this, make sure that the the time frames that we have to hit if this was gonna be implemented are moving, that's all. So it's just putting it in front of.
So
I understand.
ultimately, for decommissioning, then even if we're passing this tonight, we could go for a cash bond or a.
Surety bond.
Yeah, you still are in control of that.
Right.
This is
Okay.
specific to, and again, it might be frozen in time if the moratorium becomes either a permanent thing
Yeah.
or it's zoned out of Goshen or whatever happens.
Yeah.
But particularly with this project, so I'm asking for you guys to, review it.
I say, so,
All right,
let me
very
ask
good.
you,
And Phil, I'll get you that.
No, that's okay. I mean, I understand. I'm at the bottom line with this thing. The decision's pretty easy. I mean, the question's pretty easy. But, and I worry about the precedent. That's another thing. Because if it's a solar, it's a solar, and we shouldn't be able to discriminate. But in addition to that, in the moratorium, we should be able to cover this portion in the moratorium, right? As we discuss solar, on what we want to do going forward, so.
I think that's for you guys. The moratorium's
Yeah.
in place,
Yeah.
it's holding the line the way it's supposed to hold the line.
Okay.
I don't believe you have an issue of precedent here, because there's the idea that someone would have the same circumstances, let's just use the landscape alone puts it in a different, if you go back and if we knew exactly the legislative intent of why you chose just cash, which the recollection of Doug was that it was specific because these were popping up on farms initially.
Well, but there's another aspect
And
there.
I'm not, no, I didn't mean to limit it to that. I'm saying that, that's for you guys to figure out. I'm not worried about precedent on
Alright.
this, because if you go forward on it, it would be specific to Alturas and that project.
But we will still have a decommissioning problem. No
Yeah.
matter if it's on a landfill or where it is, if they don't
Potentially, that's for you
decommission
guys
it,
to
we
put-
would have to pay. I
But
mean, we still have it.
presidential, I'm just answering the legal portion.
Yeah,
That-
and the next thing is, where does the money come from to pay for you to do this? Is it out of their escrow? Because I'm sure the town is not gonna pay.
To do what?
Any fees, to research this or do whatever you have to do.
There's not research which portion.
Didn't
I'm
you
sorry.
just say you wanted to look at this?
I wanted you guys to look, I'm comfortable with, this allows you the option of making the decision
Right.
later on. I just want to start the clock.
Yeah.
That's really all I'm asking for on this, but beyond that, go ahead,
Okay, go ahead.
Joe.
No, okay.
No?
No, I was
Okay,
kind
thank
of
you.
done. Yeah, I'm
Okay.
trying to chop it up so it isn't looked at like, this isn't making the decision to allow the cash.
I understand.
Okay.
No?
All right, very good.
I understand. Thank
Do you
you.
want to
Yeah.
set a public hearing?
Yeah, I would like to go to the out past the 8th, whatever, I guess, the 15th. Which would give,
Well, see, so there are next steps.
Well,
We're
yeah.
setting a public hearing, so we
but you
can-
still get to vote, Phil. I mean, you
I
still,
understand.
all you're voting is
It
to
would be the
allow.
22nd.
I understand.
Oh, 22nd, I'm sorry, thanks.
22nd of June?
Yeah.
Yes.
This allows me to, this might get stopped, the county might say something, the planning board might say something, and you still have the ability to vote on that day to say, no, this is only allowing it to have the public's input and move the clock along.
But
You
it's
obviously
moving
can-
the clock along somewhere where I don't think the clock should be moved.
Then
The point-
you,
that's
but then you
what I'm
have,
saying to you.
you haven't okayed it yet.
No, I'm
I'm
not-
asking for either you to okay it or to shoot it down, but if you're gonna okay it to move along, I'm saying that the clock should go now, that's all.
I understand, I'm
Yeah.
not gonna agree to the public hearing, so if you want, you have
Well, you
three
gotta-
other
you gotta-
people.
someone's
Right,
gotta
that's
make
it,
a
you have
motion.
three other people, right?
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
right, that's exactly
Yeah.
why we have a cross
Yeah.
section. So,
Yeah.
All right, so what date is the public hearing?
June 22nd.
22nd.
Can I have a motion to set a public hearing for local law?
three.
Three.
Introductory local law 3 of
Change the local
2023.
law.
Introduction of local law 3 of 2023, a local law amending the town of Goshen zoning. Gotcha. Can I have that motion?
Okay, I'll make the motion.
Second? No second? I'm confused, Doug. You're the reason why we're here today.
No, this is part of, this is part of it. The fact is that we have had,
Understood.
it's the farm, but they'll sell it to another vendor.
again, Doug, we're here today because you brought the motion at the last meeting, so,
Yeah.
okay. So I guess no public hearing will be set.
Well, George?
You
made the motion?
I
Okay.
made the motion, but I didn't get a second.
Okay.
Yeah, for what it's worth, again, just from a procedural.
Well,
end,
the discussion tonight was of value to me. I mean, that's where I'm at. I mean, I learned something this tonight, so.
Okay. I don't want procedure to trump substance, so
Okay.
very clearly, just to make sure I'm doing my part here. This is not adopting anything, this is putting it out for the public to give input to this dais.
We understand that.
Okay,
We understand it.
What?
Here's the thing, Phil,
Okay.
I know you do,
Yeah.
you're very clearly stating that, I'm
Okay,
not,
okay.
and I don't wanna, but I have to make a comment, because there was,
Hold on one second. The last meeting, do you recall, did we have a vote and authorize that we were going to accept the cash bond for El Torres? Is that what the,
I don't think that's what happened. I think there was discussion about that project being unique. I think that we personally think you should
Then fine.
table it and let me forward everybody
Yeah.
that section
No
of the
problem.
video and let it kind of marinate. Because
Okay,
I think there's some
I'm-
confusion and I'm not comfortable
and I'm
with.
confused now, because I thought there was, so if there
No, what
wasn't.
it was, I'll say, Ryan asked if it was a possibility in the future that they could put up in the surety bond something other than cash.
Okay,
In the
We
future
said we
for
would
what?
look into it.
This
to
project or
decommission.
any project?
No,
Well,
this project.
Oh.
It was
Okay.
specific to this project's
Thank you.
presentation,
Okay.
but yes, Phil, on your end,
Yeah.
you know, it does open that door. It's a discretionary thing and you
all right,
took
but,
this, so.
no, there's no further discussion needed.
I will forward everybody the section of the video,
Yeah.
take a look,
Okay.
and it pops up on the agenda next time it pops up. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And that's up to you guys.
Okay.
So, it's Ryan, right?
Yeah.
It's Ryan. We are correct here, though. I mean, I don't know which way we're going and stuff like, you advocated for a
Yeah.
surety bond versus a cash bond.
Correct.
And it was because of the unique circumstances, is that what it was?
Right, well,
Why?
I'll be candid in saying the reason that we advocate for it is because, as we discussed previously, this project is uniquely challenging from a financial perspective.
Right.
And putting $480,000 in the town's account and letting it sit there for 25 years is just another large capital expense that makes financing a project more difficult. So I won't lie, like, for us, it's a financial benefit to have a bond that we can pay for incrementally rather than having a large cash surety.
Sure.
The way that the conversation was steered with the board in the last meeting was, as Mr. Betro had alluded to, the board was very strongly aligned with protecting landowners and protecting landowner assets from defunct developers who may skirt out on their responsibilities.
Right.
And in this case, they felt that the landowner was already in such a disadvantaged position that there wasn't really much benefit, there wasn't much to protect. And so ultimately, that's why, you know, it was pursued for us to move forward. It's also worth noting that, you know, the way that resolution reads, if I remember it correctly, was that it was for contaminated sites and rooftops. Those were like the two scenarios, if I remember correctly, that the bond would not be required. It wouldn't be required on a commercial behind-the-meter rooftop solar installation right now anyway, so it's really not that different. It's just a clarification for what you would deem a tier 3 system, so a community solar system. But I think the intention of that resolution, as I read it, was for previously disturbed and commercial sites to not have the same requirements that, say, a residential or agricultural site.
See, in order to
I
accommodate.
think you're reading something into that. My concern
Yeah.
is that we get it back the way it was, and a lot of times, like your company may sell this to somebody else, and all of a sudden, if that's not there, and they cave or what, I mean, it comes right back to the town of Goshen.
Yeah.
Get it back the way it is, and so, I mean, you know.
You're not mistaken.
No,
So-
it was a thorough presentation and discussion among the board, so I
Yeah.
think that it would be helpful if everybody watched that.
Sure, okay.
But the steps in order to accommodate this is, number one, we would first have to change our local law and change our zoning laws. And then we would go into the specifics of what we want to do with it.
If anything.
Right, if anything,
Right.
but still, we're creating a local law number 3 to accommodate this, and I'm just, anyway.
Yeah,
You send
I
us
mean, you
this
could
stuff,
look at
we're
it,
good.
certainly could be looked at that way, Phil, I'm not
All
gonna,
right, let's move on.
Yeah,
but I agree, I can see that.
thank you.
Item number 12, Discuss and approve a resolution, the home rule request for creation of a hotel tax for the town of Goshen.
Okay. Yeah, space me out next time so I get a little break in between.
Well,
Maybe
I got a
sprinkle
question
Sean in there or
before
something.
you start. George, for you and John negotiated with Legoland, okay? Relative to if we're gonna have this, they wanted half of it, we wanted to get the other half. What was, can you tell the board what happened
Hotel
back
tax,
years
yeah.
ago?
As I recall it.
That's what I mean.
Okay, in fact, I think I had mentioned this already, but I'll
You
mention
did,
it again.
right.
That is, with the host fee, part and parcel of it was if there ever was going to be a hotel tax, what would happen is half of it, in this particular case, I think we're looking at 5%. So what would happen is 2.5% would go to Legoland and 2.5% would go to the town of Goshen. So I think our attorney at the time basically said, well, that's never gonna fly. If this is being passed by the assembly on the state level, they're never gonna enter into a private entity getting 2.5%. So basically, at this particular point, I think what would happen as I walked away from that situation was either we're going to change it with Legoland so that we would be receiving the entire 5%, or it won't happen. It won't pass on to Legoland. Legoland will be like a motel in the town of Goshen without a hotel tax if this passes.
So I'm gonna punt a little bit on this, only because to dive into that agreement when it's basically been handled by Rick originally, and then Kelly wouldn't be
It was
cost beneficial
2016 too.
until this goes through. Once this goes through and the Legoland applicability, I fully intend to have those discussions.
Did you read that?
Well, we looked at it, we looked at it together a year ago when the idea of this was presented, and it appeared like George's recitation is correct. That doesn't mean that it wouldn't be renegotiated or overridden by certain things, but generally speaking, I think your analysis, George, was pretty spot on. I'm punting on it because, again, if I dive into that, I'm spending money doing something that, again, cart before the horse. Until this goes through, it didn't seem like it was.
Yeah.
This is more in the anticipation of other potential projects coming into town as well, right?
So this is kind of tongue in cheek, but I think it has some rationale behind it. I clearly think whoever has to go to Legoland and say, we don't want this anymore.
Yeah.
If we're passing this, there's going to be and you're going to be just like every other motel in the town of Goshen, and you're going to be charged 5%. And there's give and take. There's things that Legoland wants different things, a whole bunch of different types of things, and this is an easy thing, I think, for them to correct. Well, in my mind.
Yeah, but again, I wasn't part of the negotiations, but you could argue benefit of the bargain of getting host fees might have been a sliding scale of not paying hotel tax, right? So
I think that was part of it.
Yeah, so
we'll address it with them.
I personally, I don't want to get lost in that because I would be speaking.
Well, the fact is we have a community host fee that goes out for 40 years. And it's specific, it goes up each year. Well, if they had a real problem with this, maybe we could just adjust the community host fee so it's the same money.
It very well could be, and that way both parties benefit as the success goes of Legoland.
I'll have a discussion with them.
Yeah.
I wasn't here, so what is the written word now? How is it?
We'd have to go back and look.
What written word on the
Share.
I don't understand. That we share 2.5%.
As far as Legoland.
Share 50% of whatever the tax
I thought
is.
we were told that was not legal.
Well, no, but that's what I'm saying.
But that was verbal. I don't think it was in writing.
I can remember Rick saying, I believe it was Rick saying that, if, let's say this passes now, and we have a valid hotel tax in the town of Goshen for all the hotels.
I understand.
And now it comes to Legoland. And Legoland, they would be basically saying, Legoland is not going to get a dime. We don't do hotel taxes so that a private entity can get 2.5%.
What is it? What is the
That's what's written now.
Yeah, but what Rick is saying is, what Rick was saying at the time was, when you bring this to the assembly, because the assembly has to approve this.
Right.
They're never gonna approve a law that allows a company to get part of the tax. That's all.
So once he said that, did you do this anyway? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's part.
They
So we
signed
wrote the
That's
agreement
part of
anyway,
the
even though our
existing
attorney
agreement.
said it wouldn't get passed. Okay, so we did the agreement?
I don't think it's, I don't know if that's in writing, George. I think it was part of the discussion.
Yes,
I
it
think
was.
because-
Did it go to the assembly
No, wait a
for
minute.
ratification?
Phil,
If it did.
well, hold on.
Oh, no, no,
What,
no.
what we signed with them is a community house fee only for
Okay.
40 years, and the percentage it would go up each year, et cetera, et cetera. I think what George was saying is that's the part of the discussion I don't think was ever put in print.
Oh, so we have no problem.
So we have no problem.
just move
So
ahead
if we
and
do
do
with
it.
this one, then all of a sudden we can go back to them and say, hey.
No, I think it was written.
Well, I'll confirm, I think.
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Can I just reel everybody in, since there's like 9 other agenda items? I'll confirm that.
Okay.
But it
Yeah.
has no bearing on what we're doing
No,
for the
it
purposes
doesn't.
of
Right.
tonight. I want to update everybody. Heard back from, the lead on this is Senator Scoopus's office,
Right.
in conjunction with my office. And they given the okay on the resolution presented to them. So once signed off on it, which I believe is actually already, it might be in front
Yeah,
of
we got
Joe
it.
already in anticipation of that. You'll then go up to the House and Senate, and then come back down to us to be adopted as a
Right.
local law, and go through those channels.
Right.
And then we will
I
deal
know the
with the
resolutions.
applicability of it, because right now, there would be, the only applicable hotel would be, there would be a couple, it would be Limoncello and the Old Comfort Inn, but I would see about Legoland. So we'll get to that. I know, I got you.
I don't know if it's my.
No, we're getting to it. I got you. So once we're finished this with.
Well, Goshen Hospitality is gonna be the big one.
Well, sure,
When
I'm
they-
talking
when
about
they're going
existing
forward.
properties.
Right.
And that, because it includes village, it would include village properties as well. It's a town-wide tax,
Correct.
so not just town hotels. I mean, I know it's, you guys know that, but I guess.
No, it's a townwide tax on all
Yeah.
hotels.
So anyway, I wanted to update you on the procedure. I don't want to get lost in the sauce on this tonight. I will get you the Legoland answers now that we're moving this forward. And what the purpose of tonight is to authorize a resolution to be signed so that this can be handed up
So the resolution is going to say that we're going to impose a 5% hotel tax.
on short-term rentals, and which is going to segue into my next section, which is not on here, which is an update on Airbnbs, which is, I know that's.
Okay.
Why don't we make this motion and get this one
Thank
behind
you.
us?
Yeah.
Thanks, Doug.
I make that motion
I'll second.
relative to this.
All in favor?
I just had
Yeah.
one quick question.
Okay.
Go for it.
And I think you're going to them.
Yeah.
What about the B&Bs?
All right, perfect. Thanks for that. Thanks for that handoff, George.
Hold on, can I just get a little bit of control here tonight, please?
Are the B&Bs included?
Sir, just hang on. I got you, all right?
Hold on.
I know, there's 2 motions here I gotta put in play.
I know.
Sorry.
Did we vote on that last motion?
No.
I'm trying to keep a member of.
So can I have a motion to approve the resolution as prepared for hotel tax for the town of Goshen?
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, can I get a motion to authorize the supervisor and the town clerk to sign the home rule request to amend the tax law in relationship to to authorizing the town of Goshen to impose a hotel and motel tax?
So moved.
Second,
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Okay,
now you can go.
Okay.
so, thank you for your segue, George, and I'm gonna address this gentleman here just so you know where I'm heading with this, and that you're not being left behind. That was a authorization to allow a bill to go up to the House and Senate to authorize, if the board, when it comes back down, chooses to implement a local law allowing for hotel tax. That will include anything that is quantified under short-term rentals, okay? Which, we're trying to do this all in one
Which
piece.
right now is only hotels.
Right now, it's only hotels and would be B&Bs based on the definition of a short-term rental. It does not include Airbnbs, because Airbnbs are not, by their absence in the code, are not permitted, right? So what we've been doing this dance with the Airbnbs, and along with Attorney Rometta, spent a lot of time trying to, it's a quickly evolving situation. From a year ago when it was brought to our attention and potential verbiage for codes, and Joe, just allow me a little leeway with it. I know we're long here, but I'm trying to address questions I haven't asked yet. This has changed already in a year. Main component I see issue-wise is enforceability, all right? So when you have code violations and your building inspector sends out a code violation, there is generally a notice to cure type opportunity. You know, we think about it in a tangible aspect, a shed that's got, something wrong on it, you got 30 days to cure, right? Just using an example. In our scenario, by the time that cure goes out, those people have left for the weekend, it's cured itself. So we wanted to have the ability to have some teeth in here. We have never gotten to the point of deciding whether we're gonna even allow Airbnbs.
Right.
And I think ironically allowing them is one of the things that allows you to restrict them or enforce the restrictions upon them, because you're identifying in there what is an allowed use. Right now, since we don't have it in there, there's really, a notice of violation is kind of, I don't want to speak for Attorney Rometta, but it's problematic in potential enforcement. And if I'm looking at it from a defense attorney standpoint, if you don't give me guidance on what my ability to remedy a situation is or what the penalty phases are, it's hard. I feel like you can create some wiggle room in there as a defense attorney. So we're trying to spell out every piece we can, and allowing a permit process to take place should this board or future boards decide that Airbnbs are something that we want to have here, but we want to have control of what that means and what size they're allowed to be, and then also include them within that taxable framework that hotels and B&Bs are currently fall under. So there's a pretty significant carve-out that we have dedicated for review on permit process and then revocation of permit process. So we have B&Bs in there, and everybody understands B&Bs to be a certain thing, and I think owner-occupied is the main component that is different than an Airbnb. And each community's been handling this different. For example, the Village of Goshen, which, while it does have Goshen in the name, is certainly a totally different entity that we are specific to this project. But they have restrictions on the amount of times you can utilize your property as an Airbnb, which, I'm not going to suggest that it's a mechanism of cost prohibitive to limit it, but there is something to be said about that, right? So I'm updating you. I know this gentleman wants to discuss it because these are popping up and they're more present than ever, right? So things that we're including in the code are just by listing your house or property on an Airbnb or Vrbo or one of these sites is essentially it's almost providing notice to the town that you are operating an Airbnb. So if you don't have a permit, we see that on there, arguably that's a de facto violation notice. You have indicated to us you're in violation of our code. And there is we're shortening the period of time to cure, to eliminate the loophole of being able to just dodge it by those people leaving. Those are financial penalties, and there are mechanisms even to arguably, go as bold as incarceration, which I don't think is the point. It's a taxable entity. It's a financial entity in as much as there's a permit process. So the hotel tax, because it would contain within the verbiage in the hotel tax, it talks about short-term rentals, we are now on an expedited timeline. So it is on the top of my list of things that I believe that the board needs to address in some capacity. I think for the purposes of, not tonight necessarily because of the length of the agenda, I know that this gentleman wants to be heard, but discussing whether you want Airbnbs at all, and if so, with what restrictions, whether that's zoned or what hoops they have to jump through. I have some ideas that I would like to provide you, since I've been really in the weeds on this, so just at least humor me and read the stuff since I did all the work on it. But I think it will save you guys some time, almost a frequently asked question type stuff. And then we can have, I think this is gonna be on the agenda in the next few weeks. And I think that's something that we can have an evolving discussion while the hotel tax bill is making its roundabout, coming back down. I would like to time it where this is either one law or we're addressing this as one thing. It might be multiple laws because we're affecting different areas of code, but I think that's what I'm trying to do, is time it. It's similar to trying to time the other thing, to get the ball going, okay? I know that you want to discuss something, so I know it's a little out of order. It's gentleman's first town board meeting, so I don't know if you would entertain a public comment while this section's up.
Well, it's not on the agenda. We're talking about something that's not on the agenda.
I know it's not. Because it's not up for vote, but it ties to the hotel tax. That just, I mean.
Joe, I spoke to you on the phone a while back.
Hang on, sir. Sir, I understand it's your first town board meeting, but I talked to you outside. I told you I would get to you. There's a process here. I'm trying to get you to it. All right, just hang tight for 1 second. It's all right. I'm trying to be rude.
So the process is we go through the agenda. We do everything we have to, then I give privilege to the floor. You're able to get up and speak, talk about whatever you want to talk about. We'll sit here, we'll listen to you, and
sometimes
we'll
it's
vote from there.
You
will be heard.
Okay.
All right.
We're almost there. We're almost there. We're almost there. Okay.
I'm trying to get us there.
Well, we're trying to get there, but we're spending 20 minutes there.
Yeah, no, I know. It's just.
It's frustrating.
Guys, you know.
Moving on.
I'm done, so don't ask me any more questions.
13, discuss and approve an agreement with Global Philanthropy Strategies to write grants for the town of Goshen. This is something we talked about many times. I spent a little time trying to find a company that wasn't expensive to write grants for us. This was the best I could find. She's done work for me in the past. She wrote 2 grants for me, one for $325,000, which we got from the federal government, and one for $65,000, which we got from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. It calls for us to pay her a $18,000 yearly fee monthly, and she's asked for some compensation on the normal costs that I was getting back, which anywhere from $50,000 to $75,000 a year for a grant writer to write grants for the town. She was able to, she was willing to go down on it, provided that we were able to give her somewhat of a success fee if she's successful. I didn't tell her yes. I said put it in your agreement and we would discuss it. So as of right now, I'm just looking to establish the fact that the town is willing to talk about a monthly fee for her to write grants for us, and then come back, and I talked to George about this, maybe lowering it to 6 months instead of 1 year, to see how successful she is, and then to look at a compensation on a success rate on there. So I don't know if anybody had a chance to read the agreement, have any comments on it or questions on it.
Now, I got what we ought to, I think I'm okay with this, but what we need to do is figure out where do we want money, so when she comes here, we've got work for her to do, rather than just getting $1,500 a month waiting for us to.
Oh, she has a list. She's already writing. She's already looked at 3 grants for us. Yeah.
Okay.
I asked her to look specifically at. We talked about the potential of possibly having to build a new building. I told her to start there, looking at it, because I gave her a reference to a town in upstate New York who got a $3 million grant from multiple places to build a brand new town hall, 100%. So she's looking at that. She's doing some work with Kate Schmidt for Park and Rec on writing Park and Rec grants. She's and then she's looking at the biggest area that we have problems with is sewer and water.
And sewer.
So
yeah.
that's what she's looking at.
Now, did we give her that, or did she come to us?
No, I told
With
her.
potential grants?
I told her the areas that we need help with.
Right, but does she have a list of potential grants that she could write for this fee? In other words, instead of us saying there might be a grant for this, Does she have a list of grants to say, you know what? As soon as you start paying me, I'll ask for this, this, and this money?
What you do, and I'm not 100% familiar with this, but I got this information from Kate Schmidt. What you do is you look for the category that you want, and there are grants all over the place. So I did look at wastewater, and there's a ton of money from the federal government, from American Rescue, and different places on wastewater facilities. There are New York State grants for sewer lining and sewer things. So these are the areas I asked her to look at. So does she have an area she goes? Yes, there's
Most
a.
grant writers will come in and say there are grants for this, this,
Yep,
and this, for
and that's what she-
municipalities.
that
makes sense.
And that's what she will present to us.
But Phil, you know, if we can look at our water and sewer, we can keep a person busy all the time. If there are, I mean, you know, green filters and this and that,
No, I
line and
understand.
line,
Well, I'm just
water
saying
line.
is if she comes in and we start paying her, if she
Keep her
says,
busy.
you know what,
Get her
there's
money
grants
worth.
out there, let me start writing them,
Yep.
and you want a piece of it, absolutely.
Right.
Well, listen, I don't have a problem going back there and saying, you know, what we agreed to do is on a month-to-month basis to show your success.
Yes,
Absolutely.
Got no problem with that.
good.
That's good. That's what I was thinking it was six, as I said.
6 months, so I'll just go back,
Or,
I'll go back and tell her it's 30-day, month-to-month.
Yeah.
And we'll see what your success rate
Yeah,
is.
she brings grants for us, and,
All right, I'll go back to her on that, not a problem.
Now, while we're talking about that, one of the things that has worked in the past is, when I was the supervisor, I would have myself, I would have our engineer, I would have a co-chair on water and sewer, we'd get in the office and sit down and what are the things, and we gave a list, and we had a list, and that's how we did things. I mean, I was looking $500,000 for Congressman Hall, for the water line. And I started going through all these things, and yeah, good. But we gotta push it, otherwise they can sit and just get the 1,500 a month and.
That's what we'll do, 30-day, month-to-month.
Yeah.
Good. I'm all for it. All right. Christine has brought this back to our attention again. Item number 4, discuss the implementation of a $20 service charge for dishonored checks as allowed under general obligation law section 5-328. I guess we're running into a situation where we are having some bounce checks that we incur the cost for.
yeah, I think we should.
I think that too.
All right, so need a motion to accept that?
So
Yeah.
moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, item number 15, approve the appointment of Kenneth Bankhart as the alternate to the zoning board of appeals.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approve Mary Riso to attend the New York State Association of Tax Receivers and Collectors in Ithaca, New York on June 11 to 14, 2023.
So moved. So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Information, we received a letter dated April 27th from Al Turi, Goshen Fire District, requesting a 10% tax relief for the fire department and the volunteer ambulance. I reached out to Paul Wiley. This is something that the county is looking at. They haven't enacted it yet. He suggests that we hold off until the county approves it. And once the county approves it and gives us the recommendation of how to move forward, then we can implement it.
Good.
Good.
Right? Yeah. Received a letter dated April 28, 2023, commending the quick response of the Goshen Highway Department for taking care of a water issue on Route 209 Phillipsburg Road. Where is it? Dear Superintendent of Town of Goshen, I want to take the time to express my thanks for a quick response that the Highway Department provides for issues with the water along 209 and Phillipsburg Road. It is comforting to know that your office has a watchful eye on the issues without even being contacted by myself. Thank you for a great job.
Nice.
Good job, Brad.
Yep.
Tell the guys.
Yep.
All right, after a very, very long time, Frank Reinholz is retiring as the auto mechanic from the Highway Department. He was employed for us for 26 years.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, his replacement is moving into play really well.
Right in.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
good.
Good, good. Okay.
Very fortunate.
Review and approve the April 13, 2023 Town Board meeting minutes. Anybody have any questions on it, concerns, or changes?
Nope.
Can I have a motion to approve them?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Review and approve April 27, 2023 Town Board minutes. Any questions? Nope. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Discuss and approve a motion to authorize the supervisor to pay accounts payable check run for May 11, 2023 in the amount of $93,786.44. Can I have a motion? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
In your information packet, Christine Cavallari conducted an accounts payable order for May 27, 2023. It's in your pack.
April 27th.
What's that?
April 27th.
Did I say April? What did I
You
say?
said May.
I'm sorry, April 27, 2023. All right, moving on. Privilege of the floor. Anybody? Yes, sir.
Go to it.
He's the boss.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just state your name, please. For
My
the
name is
Yeah,
Dr.
take one of these, it's
yeah,
recorded.
microphone.
That's how they record it on our minutes.
Oh, I got
Goes
it.
in through the phone.
Thank you for indulging.
No, no.
Never done it before. My name is Dr. Veit. I'm a resident in Goshen, and I live next to a recent VRBO short term. And when we're talking about hotels, extended, what do they call extended living places, this is like having one of those smaller next to your home. It's a business. They don't live there, the owners. They rent it out. I know this is a new thing. My big fear is it's going to happen more and more as the summer comes and Legoland attracts a lot of people, great for the economy. But what about residents in the town that have to live next to, it's like living next to an Amoco station or it's not a bed and breakfast, as you pointed out. I broke in before because I wanted to extend that definition into these VBROs. I've had difficulty with them. I spoke to some people about it. Some have been garbage left out for 2 weeks, tracks animals, maybe he needs a sign, watch out for bears. Noise to 2 o'clock in the morning. I know I've been told to call the police. I will, as it happens. The cars roll up, maybe 6 or 7. I don't know how many they're allowed to have in there, but like the clown cars at the circus, more than one person gets out each time. And you don't know who's coming in. Each day, each week, you can have different people. You don't know who the heck they are, and I can't blame them. They came here for a vacation. They paid for a good time. Would you, any of you want one of those next to your house? You know what does the property value? It's boom. And now, just a suggestion, and believe me, you know, bear with me on this ignorant suggestion. Is there a possibility of putting something on a township-wide voting, maybe next fall, whatever, where we see it on when we vote all the time? You know, do you want to fund this? Do you want to fund that? Not just when you're voting.
Propositions.
Proposition. Could that be on the ballot? And maybe one of the things would say they're not allowed, because I think some
Well,
towns.
they're not allowed.
Yeah, some
Right now they're
towns
not allowed.
just
You don't need a
don't allow
proposition.
them. And yeah, but what I'm saying is with that, Joe, excuse me one second, if the town 95% or 80% says we don't want it, I think that gives a little more oomph or power on the town's part to work with these things. And I know you've been working on
It's an enforcement issue right now.
Yeah.
They are not allowed.
You're not allowed.
End of discussion periods, they're not allowed.
Why do
So-
they keep doing it?
Because we have to enforce it. So we have to make the law stringent enough where we penalize them for what they're doing. Unfortunately, the way the law is written today, and the attorney can attest to this, we fine them.
Right.
In the law, you have a 30-day remedy. They
Right.
remedy the problem.
Right.
If they show up on a Friday, we
Right.
fine them on a Saturday, they leave on a Monday, they remedied the problem within 30 days.
I get
There's
it.
nothing for us to get, so we have to find a way to remedy the problem. We're working on that.
To slow it down, and I know you are, and thank you guys, and I know
Yes.
it's a slow, tricky issue. But I'm just wondering, maybe when somebody buys a house, there's a question, you know, this cannot be a VBRO or something like that. Can you do that?
I think that, the irony to me in this whole situation, and I don't, there has been a lot of discussion on it. So there's, you can see there's a little mental fatigue on everybody's part.
I know, you're tired of it
And I know.
It's frustrating.
Well, it is, and you're joining the party, I'm not saying late, but
I just kept my mouth shut until.
You're
Dude,
fine.
are we
You're fine.
familiar with the location?
Yeah, I'm 5 Somerville Road,
Okay,
number
so it's-
7
yeah,
is
yeah.
the one next to me where and what he tried to
There's-
do, if this means anything.
George, there's 30 of them.
Oh,
They're all
identified.
over,
But
and
the most
believe me,
important
there's
one
more
right now is
coming,
this
and
one.
you would know, you
Right,
might know,
because-
sir, because
Because what,
I just read something where they don't look with mortgage companies, according to this article, so I can't say it's true, said that with these VBROs, the banks don't really care too much, some banks, about what they own, how much money the potential buyer has. They're more concerned with how much money this is gonna bring in.
Correct.
And people are getting loans. That's why I think this is gonna explode even more, maybe next to you,
So-
and me.
so how do you remedy that? How do you fix the problem? How do you enforce it?
Well-
You make the owner of that property,
Okay.
make him cost money.
Right.
So if you're generating revenue from your home, it's not your home anymore.
Right.
It's a business.
Right.
So now your tax rate goes from a residential rate to a commercial rate.
Right.
You look at that.
Right.
You get the Board of Health involved with the county because that house has been, the septic system on that house has been created for X amount of people.
Right.
3 bedrooms, 5 people.
And sometimes
27 show up, the septic system now has to be upgraded.
Right.
So these are all the enforcement things that you put into place to make that owner.
Are you allowed to, and I appreciate that, yes, it makes so much sense. Are you allowed to look at the owner's ledger that says we had this many people this time, this many people
Well,
this time?
all right, so that, you're kind of segueing into the idea that by selling it and advertising, which is an identifier, it's almost a
Right.
presumption that you're operating an Airbnb. You're saying this holds 14 people, so you're outing yourself. Right?
And they've done that.
Right, so what I was saying, the irony of this is that the void of it in the
Okay.
code, which makes it illegal, because it's not
I've been saying,
authorized,
it's
but
killing
because
me.
sorry guys, I'm picking up the noise.
Oh.
If you don't identify it, it would be like not identifying a crime, and even though we don't put murder on the penal law,
Right.
and then we all know it's wrong, but if it's not in there and you don't identify it, then you can't necessarily enforce it. That's a very crude way of putting it, but I want to identify it, what the legal steps would be to have an Airbnb, which is still discretionary, okay, but there would be an authorization process, and then there would be an enforcement process. But right now you need to identify it to allow the enforcement.
I understand.
All right,
I
so there's a
understand,
million
but-
different ways to do that.
And I appreciate that,
Yeah.
but I think, I looked at some of the prices, one night was around over 1,000 on Memorial Day weekend. I just,
Well,
my poor opinion
There's a
is.
reason the tax,
Right.
enforcement
So-
stuff, escalations of
What
enforcement.
you have to do as a resident is call the police every single time.
I will.
And make this a point where the police are coming there all the time.
Right.
And what's happening is that person that paid $1,000 a night is writing a negative to
Gonna
VRBO
get
with the
a
Airbnb
PO,
saying,
yeah.
this was terrible, the cops showed up every night.
And I mean, the idea, so let's say it's advertised, right?
Right,
The house is
yeah, it
advertised,
is,
that,
yes.
you're getting a jump on, it's like someone telling you they're gonna go commit a crime.
Right.
So you're beating it to the punch. So the idea is that it would become cost prohibitive, it would be known as a town that, you have to do it legally if you wanna have the Airbnb, assuming that this group even allows it
To exist.
legally, because there would still be a permit process.
Because how do they make, and I appreciate that, and I know nothing about this, for a town to make zoning laws of all types, can a zoning law, and maybe it can't legally, be created that, again, maybe all the townspeople want it, and maybe it could be passed where they just can't do it. And I know you're saying we only know if they're doing it if enforcement, but what if, again, on a house sale,
Yeah.
check off that box,
I
if they
can't
go
answer
against
that.
that, fine them $100,000.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
It's
I'm
all
getting
about-
emotional, pardon me.
It's all about enforceability. Believe me, we are as passionate as you are about it, we are also.
Right.
We understand, we have people coming here all the time.
It's gonna get worse.
It's gonna get,
Yeah.
When this first started at Lakeview, we had one home. You pop on Airbnb, there's 30 that pop up in the town right now. And they're buying these homes and they're renting them out, and
It's just from a legal standpoint, and Joe, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. My brain's working on. I'm chasing it because it has evolved that much in a year about what every town is doing.
Right.
And we're unique like any other town. There are similar. Warwick has a similar look to it. Town of Montgomery, and you know, but we have Legoland, right? So
Right.
I think we're
Well,
popping right now. So I just ask you to bear with me. I don't. Not that I'm suggesting
I know
you
it's just gonna be a.
I'm not asking you to bear with me. I'm asking you to call the cops every time they're there.
Well, I meant it from my end, yeah.
I have a question.
Hang on 1 second. I just want to finish my thought on this. I just ask that you email me any suggestions you have, and I'm not suggesting you can't come here and spitball.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to tie it in a neat little bow to present to the board here, just so it doesn't, so I'm getting into mortgages and tying it to the mortgage, and
Right.
those are ideas, and I would certainly love to explore them.
Sure.
So if
sure.
you want to have a discussion, I'd be open to talking to you about
Thank
any
you, I
ideas you have.
appreciate that. And,
Okay.
you know, just, everybody in my block is up in arms.
Yeah.
It's number one on my list of things. We got,
I'm
I think.
telling you, the
hotel
best thing
tax.
you can do is call the police department every single night after 10 o'clock when they're making
If
noise.
they're making noise.
Because right now, that's on the books, right?
Yeah.
That's something,
And
noise.
the cops are gonna show up, they're gonna knock on that door 3 or 4 times every single night. Those people are gonna write back to Airbnb saying what a horrendous time they had there, and that's how you stop it.
Because that's right
I
now,
hope
that's the
so.
authorization
I
we
hope
have.
so. I
with the-
appreciate that idea, these great ideas. It just seems, sorry,
I'm
man.
just thinking over here, what about that property is actually listed as a rental, like a second home? Do you know if it's a rental, or is there, you know, is there a primary home where he's actually?
No, he doesn't live there at all. The
Okay,
owner
so
doesn't live
probably
there at
that
all.
property is listed as a rental.
Mhm.
Now, if
I don't
it
know
is,
how he
I
listed
don't, I
it.
don't know whether he's doing anything illegal, if he's doing.
Right now.
Yes, he is.
Well, right now, because it gets into a gray area, because if we don't identify short-term rentals, then arguably one could say that anybody who is leasing or renting their property would be in violation of the code. So we're trying to identify it to kind of quarantine it off. That's not the word I wanted to use in this climate here, but just section it off, identify it, so we can enforce upon the specific issue we have. We don't have a problem with someone leasing their house for a year to a family, right? Because generally there's a consistency there, as long as it matches up with Board of Health and all the other things. So I'm happy to explain it, not to say offline, but I'm kind of deep into it right now, so I'd be happy to talk to you about where I'm at with it or any ideas you have, because those are.
And my feeling too, thank you, sir, is, and there is an important money issue involved with this too, in terms of house values, at least that's, I'm what hearing.
Their
hearing that
house
from-
value goes up because they can rent it
Yeah,
as an
for my
Airbnb,
neighbors,
yours goes
yeah,
down.
I'm thinking if he offers me 800, I'll give it to
I
him.
think that you're identifying the idea here, which is that there are, besides enforcement in general and knocking on the door, if you
Well-
cut off the pipeline to the finances, then you
Right.
cut off the
Well,
enticement to
These are
Airbnb.
great ideas, and I know you guys are working hard with this, I know
We
it's
are, but
tricky.
like I said, it's an enforcement issue.
Right.
There's not much, our hands are tied on this, they really are.
Yeah.
Until we,
Is there a way,
until we change what the enforceability is.
or
So,
change the, could the zoning be changed?
it doesn't matter.
It's zoned out right
They're
now.
zoned
They're
out.
not allowed, period.
Yeah.
It's-
I mean,
That's why it's so hard for me.
Exactly.
What
Yeah,
what we probably
It's
need to
against
do
the law.
is zone them in somewhere,
Right.
like in a commercial area.
Yeah.
Where you can have an Airbnb in our commercial zones, where it doesn't affect the resident.
Right.
So those are some of the things that we need to look at.
Yeah.
But right now, they're zoned out, so all we have is enforceability.
Yeah, just one other comment, and neither here nor there, but the owner is, in my opinion, well, I won't say trying to circumvent the law, but
Oh,
he approached me several times and said, here's my number. I said, I don't want your number, because if you have any problems, don't call the town, don't call the police, call me and I'll fix it like that. Sure. So I know to call the police
Call
and
police.
any type of issue, but, and those are those issues. But I think a lot of people are concerned of the quality of life, having people there, we don't know, changing weekly.
Absolutely.
And again, property value. is
I mean-
is a big thing. I mean, I came to here for peace and quiet
Correct.
and privacy,
Yeah.
and I feel
And you deserve that.
yeah, I'm not going to have it.
From my end, we could have amended the code 6 months ago in reaction, but we're trying to get this right.
Right.
And get it done where
'Cause
it's gonna work.
I'm sure they've got lawyers fighting it already.
It's not them you're worried about. It's Airbnb and VRBO, or the lawyers you have to worry about.
Yeah.
Right, so that has to be incorporated into zoning and making
Correct.
sure that we
Well-
do the right things, so bear with me, but I know it
But
seems like.
the best thing you can do right now, call the police. Every single, at 10:01, you should be calling the police. Too loud here.
Is the noise after 10
I
o'clock?
think it's 10 o'clock in residential.
Or is it 11? I
Off the
forget.
top of my head, I don't know.
I'll find out for
It's
you.
a
I'll find out.
distance, it's a time and a distance.
Now, this may
You
seem,
should get his phone number so you can give that number to the police.
well, I'll just give him the address. If I take his phone number,
With the,
I don't want to
tenants.
interact and quote, say the wrong thing or have him
Don't
trick
speak,
me into
don't.
something. Because besides wanting
Don't
me in,
speak.
he wanted me to come and drink with him and he'll settle it under with
Yeah,
me.
right.
Yeah.
So,
Anyway, we're getting there, all right?
And I know,
That's
and I
what we
appreciate
have-
it, pardon my emotions.
No, no.
But I think it's just gonna get worse, and I know you guys are working on it. I know there are catch-22s and
Yeah.
pitfalls that you are looking into and working on. I appreciate it very, very much.
Sure.
That all you guys are working at it, and it sounds like
We are.
this group would rather
We're-
not have them.
We're as frustrated as you,
Yeah.
believe me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As frustrated as
If
you.
not more, maybe
Yes.
because you guys,
Because you're not the only one.
Mature.
Because
We deal with.
as passionate as you are about it, I have 30 calls a week
Yeah.
about it from
Yeah.
other residents.
Yeah.
yeah, it's.
And
a
it's
mess.
hard to sit there and tell them, my
Yeah.
hands are tied.
I know, it must be very frustrating.
It's frustrating.
It's terrible.
I have an
But,
idea, and I think we'll.
Okay, I apologize.
No,
for-
no apology
So
necessary.
you'll see updates over the next, as we,
Okay.
as it's unfolding and the hotel tax is up
And
and,
down the line, it might be an agenda on a town meeting.
I would imagine there's
When
gonna be an
it's the
update
right
every,
time.
Oh,
there'll be
yeah.
an update over the next
Yeah.
coming months until the law is passed.
Just keep an eye on the town board website, and you'll see the agenda, Mary posted, Tuesday, Wednesday before the meeting, and
And you're
But-
always welcome to all our
And you're-
meetings.
Thank you, and I know now to
Yeah.
keep my mouth shut until it's my
No.
turn.
Never.
No, I
no.
kinda, I mean, to be fair to you, I kinda indicated
No
I may
problem.
be able to slide you into that specific.
I thought that's
So-
when you were
so
saying I could say
will
something.
take the blame for that as a good
But
attorney.
in any case, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Keep up the great work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sue?
Take care.
I don't need the microphone, that's okay. A couple things. One is, Altury landfill, Northern Recycling, where TAM is, that's an environmental justice area. I know, I think it was Hochul just passed that law, she signed, so it has to go through an EJ review. I didn't wanna bring it up.
No, you're talking about if the decommissioning is amended?
No, it's when you have for seeker.
Right, but which
That's gonna-
law are you referring, which you're referring to?
Under environmental justice, it's got a whole.
Which agenda item, Sue?
Oh,
Altruist.
yeah.
But they're on as
I
a
know,
public
they're-
hearing, and they're
Well,
on,
But I'm not
it's a
trying-
seeker
I'm not
item,
trying to-
right?
I'm not trying to pick on them. I'm saying anything in that area
Correct,
is
you're right.
supposed to go through an environmental justice. I waited until after you were done
But
on
that's,
purpose.
you're right, but that's not at this board. That's the planning board that,
No, this board too.
For what? For
if
special
you're-
permit?
For special permits or anything that you're acting on with a public hearing that's part of seeker, it's supposed to go through environmental
but
justice.
they've gone through the secret process already.
I know, and I don't think that it went through the environmental justice review. There's a whole special, but you can look it up, but I don't need to.
can you reach out to Sean and find out?
What?
It was just passed.
She passed a more stringent one. She's trying to build.
Oh, I see.
So anyway, I just wanted to let you know that. The other thing I was here on was Northern Recycling. Because the articles that I have, the newspaper articles, and I think they were passed on maybe to a couple of you, from the Times Herald Record, Seal Walker found where they were permitted. My recollection, and I remember my neighbor Jerry Boss going to many meetings about the their fee. I remember it is 50 cents a ton. There's also another.
Oh, IWS, I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm sorry
So,
about that. And then there's also a newspaper article with Doug that said he didn't know about it.
So we did the research on that, Neil brought it to my attention, and Phil was gracious enough to fill me in on it, so there was a host agreement that went into play, and needless to say, I think the
Never
good word
signed.
is we got snookered.
Never signed.
Wasn't signed.
So they passed whatever they wanted, they permitted whatever they wanted, and then they reneged on
They
the host
reneged
agreement.
on the agreement. Within
Okay.
days before the signing, they came in and said, nah, we're not gonna do it at all. What? We've been negotiating for a year, 2 years. It's a long,
All
involved
right, I'm
process.
not gonna get
Yeah,
into your
right.
business.
But
It's
they're
late.
in front of
Right.
us now.
That's the reason I'm bringing it
You
up,
got it.
They're in front of
because
us now.
that's
yes.
a lot of money. They've taken a lot
You
of
brought it
garbage,
up.
and I'm really
60,000
hoping.
tons a year.
Yes,
That's what their permit is.
now you got it.
And
I have a long memory.
$30,000 a year to the
I have a
town.
long memory.
that would be nice.
Would be nice.
Okay.
George went down to the facilities to look, to check on the host fees that they were paying. Other municipalities, which were more than double what we negotiated, and at the last couple of days, they said, nah, we don't have to. Legally, we're not gonna do it. So, anyway.
Okay.
But I'm aware of it. Neil brought it to my attention.
Yeah.
I'm aware of it. And
Yeah.
I know they're in front of the planning board now and they're looking to get things done. And we are going to revisit it.
Okay, and I'm hoping that people will look at the laws, because there's that 7 to 10 acre law, and I don't know that they meet that.
You mean as far as
As being able to expand.
Right.
correct, the planning board's looking at that now. They may need a
But I mean,
variance on
that's
that.
up to you
Yeah.
guys, I'm just.
No, yeah, I think
Good information.
they're at 40% right now and
Yeah.
they're looking to go to 60% coverage.
Yeah.
That's a planning board kicking it to probably the zoning board. But you're right.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
it just seems, and I'm very happy to see about the hotel tax that you guys are taking action. Because our roads, I don't know if you saw Channel 12, but they did Goshen. They had it on TV about them being filthy alongside, and I've been harping at this board, trying to get them to pass a hotel tax to help clean the roads, and a lot of it's coming from the garbage trucks. People don't go around with a gallon of milk and drink it and throw it out in the car.
Yeah, they come in, they could be, yeah. We have a cleanup set for June 2nd, correct? And adopt the highway and clean up? June 3rd.
But anyway,
You're talking
it
about
would be nice to see the
Rubbish along
funds.
the sides of the road, not
Yeah.
just.
That's what we're doing on June
Yeah,
3rd.
yeah.
We have a get out and clean Goshen,
Okay.
Goshen Green.
Oh, and one other housekeeping thing. Orange County landfill, I didn't bother printing out the stuff. If you need it, I will be more than happy to print out the map. Is contaminated, came up with a positive with dioxin, I believe, if my memory's right, and it was extremely high. I know Altuve, the one was 75 times higher than I believe it's supposed to be on that map. Orange County was pretty bad, so you have 2 landfills that have got significant problems right now, so if you're gonna have somebody look into one.
Sure, get the stuff to me, I'll take a look at it.
Okay.
Okay, we're on.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
I have a cannabis dispensary on wheels. I was here a few months ago.
Yep.
So I figured I'd stop in again to just say I've had tremendous feedback from surveys I have, and if the door was open, I wouldn't mind setting up somewhere on the outskirts of town and giving out surveys here to see what Goshen feels like with the cannabis.
It's not open.
Well, we haven't revisited it. We rejected cannabis, correct?
Yes.
So as of right now, the town is not entertaining any public dispensaries on it
At all.
at all.
Right, with the survey to see about how the town feels about that, the people in the town and stuff like that, maybe.
The town board made the decision based on public hearing here back a
Yeah,
year or so ago.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
they do not want cannabis sold in the community of Goshen.
With all due respect, that was before several incidences with the school and kids having edibles
saying
and
the way it
THC
is.
in their system. That's a little alarming, I think.
Well,
So
that's
maybe
the way it
something
is.
needs to be revisited, I don't know.
Well, what is it to revisit?
Well, I don't know, if we can't track back where people and kids are getting these edibles and stuff from, maybe the way they're distributed in the town should be revisited and And maybe
They're
we should
not
say-
coming, they're not
right
coming,
now-
you know they're not coming from the town.
We don't know that. Where do these kids get them if they're not, where do they go out of town? They take a bus out of town and get these edibles? These kids? We're talking about middle schoolers here. They don't really have access to vehicles and stuff.
I don't know.
So you want to use your mobile van to distribute?
Well, to give surveys out and see what people feel like.
Surveys for
Well, you're free to do whatever you want survey wise,
sure.
we
Yeah.
can't stop you from doing
Go
that, do
ahead.
your surveys.
Okay,
But don't sell any.
all right,
But feel free to survey.
all right.
Yeah.
All right.
Next.
Anybody else? All right, could I get a motion to close the town board meeting?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much,